Hi everyone, welcome back. So in the previous class we stopped at alluvial soil, that is the first type of soil, and I know that you have already covered all the four types of soil, but I'll just go very fast through these topics. So the second type of soil is black soil. Since it is black in color, the name is black soil. It's black or rather dark in color. It's also called as rugged soil or black cotton soil, or in sometimes it's also called as lava soil since it is formed from lava rocks or volcanic rocks. Now, distribution, if you see the distribution of volcanic soil, it's mainly seen in the Deccan Tract region, that is the region located in between Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats. Right. The reason is that there was one volcanic eruption long back, and lava started spreading into this entire area that is located between two hilly areas, Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats, and slowly it started cooling down and the entire area became volcanic uh, in nature, and later with the help of millions of years it broken down into small pieces, and that has become black soil, right? And characteristics of black soil, these are very fine structured, textured, as well as clay, very clay in nature, rich in minerals like lime, iron, magnesium, whereas poor in percentage of phosphorus, nitrogen, and organic matter. It is black in color as it is formed from lava rock, which is volcanic in origin, or which is black in color, and it's very clay compared to all other type of soil. Up to 15% of clay content can be seen, and therefore, since it is clay, it has very high water retentive capacity, right? Very high water absorbing capacity, and the soil expands when it is wet. Once if we add water, or immediately after the first rain, it become very hard, right? It will expand, and it will be very difficult to plow. And on the other hand, when the soil is dry, the soil shrinks and it develops cracks, and these cracks are actually helpful because cracks will help in air circulation. More part of the soil will get exposed to the atmosphere, so air circulation will happen properly. Now you might have seen photos like this. So these are actually black soil. So this is one of the main feature of black soil, that it forms cracks when it is dry. Now the soil is very fertile in most of the part of the country. It's very good for cultivation, and it is suitable for cultivating almost all type of crops like cotton, jowar, wheat, sugarcane, linseed, etc. And since cotton is one of the most important crop that is cultivated in this soil, it is also called as black cotton soil. Now moisture is always there in the subsoil. Subsoil means in the second layer. On the top layer we call it as topsoil or a horizon. Just below that we have the subsoil. So whether it is summer or winter, always there is water moisture content in the subsoil. So it is suitable for dry farming also. Dry farming means farming without using additional irrigation. Now the next type of soil is red soil. This kind of soil develops on crystalline rocks. Crystalline rocks means rocks that are composed entirely of crystallines while the formation of rock, when magma cools or lava cools down very fast at the surface of the earth, large crystals are formed. Then that type of rock is called as crystalline. Then all the crystalline indicates the age. So red soil is mainly formed by the breaking down of all the crystalline type of rocks, and the process of breaking down or the weathering is comparatively very slow, and it takes a long time. It's not, sorry, not m. Okay, so that's how red soil is formed. Now the soil differs from place to place. I mean, the characteristics of the soil differs from place to place according to parent material as well as the climatic conditions. Color may change from the original color red to brown or gray or to yellow. So it is red in color usually. That is because of the presence of iron oxide, and the color may vary different according to different places, to brown or gray. And when it is in hydrated form and the moisture content is there, it is yellow in color. That's the characteristics of red soil. Now if you see the distribution here in this map, this entire area which is marked in red color is the area where we have the distribution of red soil. And if you observe it, it's mainly found in the peninsular part of the country, encircling the black soil region. This is the areas of black soil, and all around it, almost partially it is encircling it, we have red soil. Then other one area is the northeastern states, except this Assam Valley and parts of Meghalaya. So these are the areas where we have red soil distribution in India. And if you see the characteristics one more time, it is porous soil, means a lot of space is there, it's not thickly packed, and it has high percentage of iron content, that is why it is red in color. Generally, thickness of the soil is very less, shallow. pH value ranges from 6.6 to 8. Right. Then it is loose soil. That means I told you already it is porous soil. Therefore, it is loose and it is highly aerated. Since it is porous, air circulation is happening properly. But it is not that much suitable for cultivation because it is poor in minerals like phosphorus, potassium, then organic matter as well as nitrogen. But it is ideal for dry farming because it is formed in poor rainfall conditions. Right. Since it is found in poor rainfall areas, it is used mainly for dry farming. It is not fertile, but it responds very well to fertilizers. That means if we could add fertilizers, then it is suitable for cultivation. So, in order to do cultivation in red soil, farmers need to provide irrigation as well as fertilizers, and it contains a little amount of soluble salt, and that is why it is not that much suitable for cultivation. Now the crops cultivated in red soil, if you see, we can cultivate almost all kind of crops once we provide fertilizers as well as irrigation. And the most suitable crops that can be cultivated are vegetables, rice, ragi, tobacco. Then wherever the soil is coarse, whether it's comparatively larger and hard, in those areas groundnuts as well as potatoes are cultivated, whereas the areas where the soil is clay in nature, in those areas sugarcane is cultivated. Now the fourth type of soil is laterite soil. This one is slightly different from the other one, right? Other three. So laterite soil is formed again due to weathering, but it is formed under a certain condition. That is, the weathering of the rock has happened under alternative period of high temperature and heavy rainfall. So the weathering of rocks in those area where we have an alternative period of high temperature as well as heavy rainfall. That means rainfall is also high, temperature is also high. So in those kind of areas, a process happens. It is called as leaching, or we can call it as desilication. So this is the process that leads to the formation of laterite soil. It's nothing, very simple, as you can see here in the figure. It is a process by which minerals from the topmost layer of the soil infiltrate down or leach down. So this process is called as desilication or leaching. So since the valuable minerals are going down in the lower layers, the fertility of the soil is comparatively very less. All the important nutrients which are there on the top of the soil goes down in the interior layers, and in this way the soil become infertile, right? So what actually is happening is the nutrients are percolating down, leaving the topsoil infertile. Now the reason for leaching is heavy rainfall. So it is found in those areas where we have this soil lacks humus content because the bacteria which are living at very high temperature conditions removes the humus. And basically, if we say laterite soil is a residual soil, a soil that forms in its original place. But we can have two types of laterite soil based on their location. One is called as upland laterite and the other one is called as lowland. It's very simple, nothing. If the parent rock is located on the top of mountains or upland and it is breaking down and forming soil there itself, then that is called as upland laterites. On the other hand, if it is taken down by agents of erosion and deposited in the valley, then that type of soil is called as lowland laterites. Now, moving on, this is the distribution map of laterite soil. We can see this in some small patches, and the important areas are the Western Ghat areas, right? Western Ghats, Eastern Ghats, then the parts of northeastern states. We have Gairokasi Jaintia Hill in this area, right? So Aravalli Hills. Right? So these are the few areas where we see laterite soil in India. Now the characteristics of laterite soil: it is co-structured, soft as well as friable. Friable means it can be easily broken into pieces. It is red in color due to the presence of iron oxide. and through the process of leaching, the minerals like important minerals like the main food for plants like potash is removed by leaching, so therefore it is not fertile. Not only that, it is poor in minerals like lime, magnesium, and deficient in nitrogen. Oh, I think I missed that term. So it is deficient in nitrogen. But on the other hand, it is rich in alumina and iron oxide. Soil is porous. There are a lot of spaces are there, and it does not have the water moisture or water retaining capacity. Right, water can easily pass through it, but it cannot store the water because it has a lot of porous spaces. And it is suitable for cultivating a number of crops. Again, typing error. Crops like tapioca, cashew nuts, tea, coffee, etc. are cultivated in laterite soil. Basically, it is acidic in nature and alkalis are leached. The reason is through leaching process, alkalis are all taken away, so acidic in nature. And laterite soil as well as the laterite bricks are suitable for building purposes. And the first one on the top left, this is the laterite soil. Right? Moving on to clockwise, next is a laterite quarry, and this is how earlier days the bricks were taken out, and nowadays we have machines, and these are the laterite bricks which is used for construction of houses. Then crops cultivated in laterite soil. A number of crops are cultivated in laterite soil. In the lowland laterites, farmers usually cultivate ragi, rice, sugarcane, etc. And at the same time, in the upland laterites, these crops like tea, coffee, rubber, etc. is cultivated. Soil is usually infertile, but by providing manure, the soil can be used for cultivation of a number of crops. So this is one integrated map that shows the distribution of soil. Now this will be helpful for you people because it is also showing the state names. There are 6 types of soil given here. The 2 which is not there in the syllabus are the mountain soil, that is given in green color, which is not there in your syllabus, as well as this soil, the arid or the desert soil. Both these are not there in the syllabus, but other 4 are there. So this map will be helpful for studying the location of the states also. Oh, that much is already over. I think you have already done this. Okay, now moving on to the next topic, we have the topic called soil erosion. So soil erosion is a very commonly heard topic. So what is soil erosion? Nothing, it's the removal of topsoil by some agent of erosion is called as soil erosion. And the agent of erosions are various: water, wind, glacier, then ocean, current, ocean waves, this, etc., etc. But here we have to concentrate on mainly 3 agents. One is the water, second is the wind, and third is the human beings or the human action. First one is soil erosion by water. Soil erosion caused by water can be classified into 6 different types: sheet erosion, rill erosion, gully erosion, leaching, sea or shore erosion, and stream bank erosion. Now let's see all these one by one. Now the one which is not there in the syllabus or one which is not given in the previous slide is this one, splash erosion. So the first stage of erosion is actually splash erosion. When a drop of water falls during the rainfall time, as soon as it falls on the ground, it splashes, and that causes the initial soil erosion. Right, from one place particles are detached and displaced, so that is the beginning of erosion. Then slowly, as rainfall become more and more intensified, more and more particles will get detached and it will start moving along with the water. That is how the first type of erosion, that is sheet erosion, begins. Right, so there is sheet erosion, water moving through the surface of the through the surface of the air, just like a sheet, covering the entire area like a thin sheet. When the water flows, and that is what is called as sheet erosion. It carries sediments in an horizontal. Slowly, as the time passes, sheet erosion will change into rill erosion. Small rills will start forming, and over time the rills will become deepened and widen, and slowly it will change into larger rills. That is what is called as gullies. Then this type of erosion is called as gully erosion. So these three are actually a continuous process. First, sheet erosion. Water is flowing on the surface in a horizontal manner. Slowly that is changing into small rills. Then these rills are becoming larger and larger, and that is what is called as gullies. So this sheet erosion that changes into rill erosion. Later on it changes into gully erosion. It will take time. Sometimes it will be very fast, sometimes it will take very long time. Now the next type of erosion is leaching. We have already seen this. Leaching is the process by which minerals from the top soil are infiltrated down into the lower part of the lower layers of the soil profile. Now next one is the sea erosion or the shore erosion, or we can also call it as coastal erosion. It's nothing but erosion taking place in the coastal areas due to the action of waves as well as tides and ocean currents. So because of all these three, erosion taking place in the coastal areas are called as sea erosion or coastal erosion. So here you can see some photos. The first one, this actually shows erosional landforms. Earlier these are all connected, but because of the continuous action of the water, slowly it got eroded and it has detached from the mainland. So that is what is given in the picture. Right? These are all different types of landforms. This is called as a stack, this is called as an arch, right? Then here also same thing. Earlier these are all part of one single large landmass, but the middle area got eroded, and now they are all standing separately as stacks, and this is what is called as a cliff. Now you can see waves are reaching here, and whenever there is or you take the case of rainy season, whenever the water level is high, ocean waves will easily reach the cliff and it will slowly erode the bottom part, and the same process will continue for thousands of years, and this area will get eroded, and slowly this also will get eroded as the time passes. But this one pic shows a very sudden type of erosion. Human made actually. This is a road actually. So these areas are invaded by the water, and it is getting eroded at a very faster rate. Okay, now this is a small GIF that shows coastal erosion. Okay, this is how it happens, but it takes very long time, millions of years, but the process is like this. Now there is one more type of erosion that is also the same, stream bank erosion. As the name suggests, erosion at the bank of streams. So this can happen due to the normal flow of the water. When the sides are very loose, it's not made up of, when it is not made up of hard rock or something, slowly it will start eroding. Then whenever there is flooding or high water level, that will cause even more erosion and meandering of the river. Right, when river meanders, on one side there is active erosion, in this area there is active erosion, so the river will erode this area and the sediments are deposited on the other side, and as it goes forward in the next loop, here it will be erosion, and on the opposite side it is deposition. So it's a natural process, right? But in many areas this has become very huge, and the impact has become huge. So that is about stream bank erosion. And the last photo, this is a pic of the Brahmaputra river. Every year during the rainy season there will be flood in this river, and you can see these riverine islands, and they changes their shape and they shift from their place every year. So that also part of the same type of erosion. So we have a lot of erosion due to water, that is mainly 6 type. Now let's see soil erosion due to human action. So human action, mainly it is deforestation, right? So the statistics says that at an average every year India loses about 47,500 hectares of forest land. When forest land is lost, that area will become clear like this, and sheet erosion will start whenever the rain arrives. So in the absence of vegetation, instead of infiltrating down, the soil water will now start flowing down slope, and on its way the water will carry the soil from its original position, then that causes soil erosion. Slowly, as the water reaches downstream, it become larger sills, and later they will change into gullies. That means now the rate of erosion has become more. So deforestation causes soil erosion. It is mainly seen in places like the foothills of Himalayas, that is the Shivaliks, outer Shivaliks in the western part of the Himalayas, then in the slopey areas of western Ghats as well as in the eastern Ghats, then in the hilly areas of northeastern states. So these are the areas where we have very high level of soil erosion happening due to deforestation. So this is due to human action. So in the name of development, people are cutting the forest without any mercy, so that is leading to soil erosion. Then soil erosion by wind. So soil erosion by wind means nothing but the movement of particles from one place to another place because of the wind force. So this process is called as soil erosion by wind, and it is very common in areas where the vegetation is absent. Whenever there is vegetation, speed of the wind is restricted, so wind erosion will become very less. Not only that, this vegetation will act as a barrier against the wind. So the areas which are devoid of vegetative cover has active wind erosion. Now, in wind erosion, the particles are carried from one place to another place, mainly through these three different ways. First one is called as suspension. That is, the particles which are very small in size, fine sized particles which is less than 0.1 millimeter, are taken from one place to another place by the wind in the form of suspension, because they are very tiny and they can be easily taken from one place to another. And those particles which are of medium size, like 0.1 to 0.5 millimeter, they moves by bouncing and hopping, and that process is called as saltation. And the greater one, right, which are comparatively greater, so wind may not be powerful to lift these, so bouncing may not happen or hopping may not happen. Instead, it will start rolling, and that process is called as soil creep. So these are the three different ways through which particles are transported from one place to another place by wind. So we can see all those things. So larger boulders move from one place to another place by rolling, that is what is called as creep, and the medium sized one jumps or hops, that is what is called as saltation, and the tiny particles move along with the wind as suspension. So this is actually the what is that, saltation, jumping. Then this is suspension. I think you can see here in the middle, right? They are suspended, and this is very commonly seen during dust storm and all. Now the causes of soil erosion in India. So if you take India as a country, there are a lot of reasons, but the major six are these. Heavy population pressure on the land is one of the major reason for soil erosion in India, followed by the nature of rainfall, overgrazing, bad farming techniques, topography, and deforestation. Now here the first picture shows the encroachment of people into the forest area in the name of development. We are constructing roads, we are constructing these power lines, and these are pipelines, roads, so many things. So all these things happens by encroaching into the forest areas. Not only that, every day, even this time also, population is growing like anything. So the pressure on the forest as well as, or on the other hand, we can say pressure on the land area is increasing day by day. So this has led to deforestation. So basically, whenever there is a deforestation, it ultimately leads to soil erosion. That is one thing. Second, if we take the case of the nature of the rainfall, this graph shows the annual rainfall received in the country. So majority of the rainfall is received in just 4 months. Some 80% of rainfall is in June, July, August, September months. So these months, during these months, there is heavy rainfall without any gap. So uh, places like hilly areas, slopy areas, like these areas experience mainly the western Ghats as well as foothills of Himalayas and northeastern hills. So these areas experience heavy downpour and that causes soil erosion. Now, another thing is overgrazing. India is the country with the largest number of cattle in the world, and on the other hand, we don't have that much pasture land or the grasslands. So grazing is happening in open areas. Wherever there is open place, animals are kept for grazing. So what they do is they eat it completely till the root, and that causes uh, the destruction of tiny plants. So ultimately that will also lead to soil erosion. Then another problem is the faulty methods, the traditional methods of farming that we use even today. Many of these farming methods are not scientific. That will cause soil erosion. Not only that, the size of the farmland is very small. So that is also another problem. So all these things together causes soil erosion. Then next is topography. Many areas or many hilly areas are very steeply sloping. So in those areas, whenever there is a rainfall, soil erosion is very common. Sometimes it becomes dangerous like this, landslides. And the last one is deforestation. Different activities ends up in causing deforestation. From shifting cultivation to cutting of forest for taking wood, timber, and other things. So all these things causes deforestation, and deforestation, once there is deforestation, that initiates soil erosion. These six factors are the main causes of soil erosion in India. Right. The first one is heavy population pressure on the land. Second, nature of the rainfall. Then overgrazing, bad farming techniques, topography, and the deforestation. Now, the areas of soil erosion, almost all parts of the country is there, but some of the important states where soil erosion is very common are Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, and Karnataka. These are the areas where, or the states where, soil erosion is relatively high. Now, according to one estimate, every year rainwater alone washes out 1 out of 8 centimeter thick fertile topsoil. Every year, due to rainfall, only due to the rainfall, uh, 1 out of 8, that is thickness of top fertile soil is eroded by rainwater. Now, among these all places, the worst affected areas are marked here. One is the dry areas of the Rajasthan, Gujarat, or the western desert areas. Here, wind erosion is more active. Then, these are the Piedmont areas or the foothill areas of the Shivalik Mountains or the western Himalayas. Then, the badlands of Chambal and Yamuna. There, the main reason is running water. Then here we have the Chota Nagpur Plateau region, the region where we have a large number of mines, industries, etc. Then the Sabarmati Tapti Valley in Gujarat. Then here also in the central part of the Maharashtra also we have areas where soil erosion is severe. So these are the major areas where we have soil erosion in India. Now, how can we prevent this? These are the preventive measures. There are so many measures, but few effective measures are given there. Terrace farming, shelter belt, contour plowing, strip cropping, construction of dams, plugging gullies, planting trees, etc. The first one is terrace farming. Terrace farming, as you all know, it is converting a slopy area into terraces like this, right? So that we can avoid runoff of the water as well as soil erosion. Not only that, it will give a good platform for cultivation. So this kind of farming against the traditional contour plowing and all, not contour plowing, the cultivation on the slopey areas, it helps from this one. Sorry, it prevents soil erosion. So So this is one of the best method that can be adopted in hilly areas to control soil erosion. Second method is called as shelter belt. Shelter belt is nothing but it's simply planting trees along the boundaries of the agricultural lands, so that these trees will act as a barrier for wind. It reduces the speed of the wind as well as it controls erosion by wind. Another method is contour plowing, that is plowing uh, according to or plowing parallel to the contours on a hilly areas. On a hilly areas, contours are like this, horizontal. If we are plowing uh, from top to bottom like this, then that would cause more and more soil erosion. But on the other hand, if we could plow perpendicular to the slope of the area like this, as shown in the photos, it will help in reducing soil erosion. This method of plowing is called as contour plowing. The next one is strip cropping, that is converting the entire agricultural land into number of different strips. Then sometimes alternative strips are left empty, or sometimes different types of crops are grown in different strips. Some of them may be taller than the other one, so that will help in reducing the speed of the wind as well as controlling wind erosion. You can see one example here. 3 different crops are cultivated here in 3 different strips. Another method is construction of dams. Dams are constructed in the upper course of large rivers to control soil erosion. A number of dams are constructed in India also to control soil erosion. Now another method is plugging gullies. Gullies are one of the major uh, area through which soil erosion happens. So if we could make a check dam like this, then we will be able to collect a huge amount of soil behind the check dam. So this type of check dam making is called as plugging gullies. And the most important thing is planting trees. And the last topic of this lesson is soil conservation. Soil conservation is simply, it is the prevention of soil from getting depleted. So soil depletion happens mainly through soil erosion in India. So before we go into different methods of conservation, let's see what are the needs for conservation in India. We need conservation of soil in India because of the following factors. First one, soil erosion affects agriculture. It also affects the groundwater table. If there is soil erosion, uh, water infiltration reduces and runoff increases. That means instead of inflating down into the soil, water will now flow away from one place. So that will reduce groundwater level. Not only that, it will reduce the soil moisture. When the soil moisture is reduced, then fertility of the soil decreases and it slowly become unsuitable for cultivation. Not only that, it will cause drying of vegetation, it will affect the entire ecology. Then areas or the arid areas will start extending outward. Then this will also lead to major problems like increase in the frequency of floods as well as droughts. Then soil erosion, actually all the soil eroded from forest area and all other places are finally going into a water body. So that will lead to silting of the water bodies. It can be a river, it can be a lake, it can be a pond. Wherever the soil is reaching, ultimately in those areas silting of the river, silting will take place. And if silting happens on riverbed, depth of the river decreases. That means the capacity of the river to hold the water decreases, and that will lead to calamities like floods. Then not only that, all these things at the end of the day affects the economic development of the country negatively. So since all these problems are prevalent, we need to conserve soil. Now soil conservation schemes were there from the time of independence onwards. The government has started taking a number of measures to conserve soil, and one of the initial scheme was started in the first 5-year plan, that is in 1951-56 time period. So in that particular scheme, the emphasis was given on development of technology for problem identification, then formulation and implementation of schemes. So the main stress was given on uh, to develop a technology that could identify the areas which are affected by soil erosion. First, to locate the areas which are affected by the problem. Second, to formulate a method to overcome, and third, to implement. So this was the stress, or this was the topics where emphasis was given in the first 5-year plans conservation scheme. And it it was done through a number of process. One was land reclamation. At that point of time, we had a lot of wasteland land which is not used for any activities. So those areas were taken into useful activities. Then a number of soil as well as land use survey was conducted in order to identify the areas which are affected. Then planting of trees also encouraged in order to control soil erosion. So this was one of the first scheme that was introduced in India. That was in the time of first 5-year plan. After that, in 1980, that is during the 6th 5-year plan, central government sponsored another one program, that was the integrated watershed management. Watershed means an entire area served by one river, just like a small river basin. So here, this particular program or this scheme was introduced in 7 states and 1 union territory in the Gangetic Basin. That means the entire North Indian Basin. So the main aim of this scheme was to enhance the ability of the catchment area to reduce soil erosion, as well as to reduce the silt load in the stream beds to mitigate floods. So it was introduced in 1980-85 time period in the Ganga Basin, covering 7 states and 1 union territory. That union territory was Delhi. Right? Then the aim of the scheme was to enhance the ability of the catchment. That means to increase the ability of the catchment to absorb more and more amount of water, right? Instead of simply flowing the water out in the form of runoff, one of the main aim was to increase the ability of the catchment to absorb more and more water. Second, to reduce soil erosion, and third one, to reduce the deposition of silt in the streams. As I mentioned in the previous slide, the deposition of silt load in the stream beds will lead to floods. So one important aim of this one particular scheme was to reduce the supply of silt load into the streams. Another one scheme came in 1987-88 time period. So it was called as reclamation and development of ravine areas. Now it was implemented in mainly 5 states. The then MP, UP, Assam. MP includes Chhattisgarh also, then UP, then Rajasthan. Now the name of the scheme is reclamation and development of ravine areas. Now ravine means, you can see a river here. This is the river Chambal. So these are the banks of the river, right? So this entire area on both sides of the river, this much area is called as the ravine. Right. So everywhere it is not the situation like this. In some places, or in most of the places, the situation is like this. The ravine areas are completely eroded. So it was very common in main 2 rivers. One is Chambal and Yamuna. So this one particular scheme actually was to develop the ravine areas of Chambal as well as Yamuna river. Now the aim was, first one, to build a building to halt further ingress of the ravines. Ravines are getting eroded like this. It was moving away from the stream. So one of the main aim was to stop this by building a peripheral boundary on both sides of the river, so that the ravines will not erode further. And second was afforestation of the ravines. So ravines of the Chambal is comparatively wider. So another important aim of this scheme was to do planting of trees in those areas, so that fuel and food fodder can be affordable. And the last one was reclamation of shallow ravines. Some of the shallow ravines were lost, right? So to get it back was the third aim. Right. So that is the scheme of 1987-88 time. Then in 1994-95 time, another one scheme came, that is to control the shifting cultivation. So the scheme for control of shifting cultivation, and it was implemented in northeastern states, and you know that the shifting cultivation was commonly practiced in northeastern states. So shifting cultivation is a method of cultivation where cultivation is done after clearing a patch of forest. A patch of forest is taken and it is burned, so that causes deforestation. Not only that, farmers don't use any fertilizers or any manures, so once the fertility of the land is completely gone, they will shift to another place, right? So that is why it is called as shifting cultivation. So this shifting cultivation causes deforestation, so it was necessary to stop deforestation, yeah, shifting cultivation. So government came with this one particular scheme in 1995, and the main aim was to divert the shifting cultivation and to encourage people to do terrace farming, horticulture plantation, as well as afforestation. So this was the main aim of the scheme. So through this scheme, to a certain extent, government was able to control shifting cultivation at that time. Then people who practiced shifting cultivation started shifting from shifting cultivation to terrace farming, which are more scientific and which won't cause soil erosion. Then they also started doing horticulture plantation as well as afforestation, and afforestation later helped in other activities also. So this was another one scheme that was used for soil conservation in India. Okay, now in 1985-90 time, that is in the seventh 5-year plan, another one scheme was introduced that was called as the National Project on Development and Use of Biofertilizers and National Project on Quality Control. Aim of this one particular project was to encourage the use of biofertilizers as well as to encourage balanced and integrated use of fertilizers. Right. So these are the schemes that is introduced in India to control uh, soil erosion as well as to conserve soil. And at the same time, in urban areas, rainwater harvesting was taken as an important measure to control soil erosion. Right. So it not only helps soil erosion. The main aim of rainwater harvesting was to store water or to recharge groundwater, but at the same time, it was also used as a measure of soil conservation in urban areas. So these are the methods that are used for conservation of soil in India. So that's it. Thank you.